So remember, when you're actually photographing a family, under the guise that you are actually commissioned to photograph a family at a wedding, whether it's a family portrait session, they know you're there. Okay, let's just get that over and done with it. They know you're there and you're there to actually create a family portrait of some description. But remember, there's going to be opportunities that reveal themselves, whether it's event-driven, like a wedding, whether it's actually a family portrait session, where things just spontaneously happen. And I'm saying to you that there is a big difference between creating and capturing, right? So we can create, as in we actually create something out of nothing. Hey, stand there, and let's do a nice little portrait. And there'll be times where we just capture it. Okay, so one is a very reactive way of photographing, and there's one is a very proactive way of photographing. You have to not only capture the magic that exists, but create magic of your own. But creating magic that exists, you have to be really wary of what is happening and anticipate moments. That's why I strongly encourage you that if you haven't photographed a wedding yet, you're better to actually learn by watching this very class and being able to witness what it's like photographing an actual wedding, like being a virtual assistant to somebody. Even better yet is actually being with a person on a wedding day and to be able to know what it's like in a real world situation to photograph a wedding. Or even a family portrait. So please practice and assist as many people as you can before you take the leap of actually photographing for real on a wedding day. But just know that family portraits are not just about the ones that you pose in front of your camera. There'll be moments like the father-daughter dance and the mother-son dance where it's going to be such a beautiful thing, and you know there's going to be probably lots of tears, there's going to be lots of laughter, and it's going to be very emotional. So after shooting for a lot of times, like many weddings and over many years, there are certain cultures, certain rituals at certain weddings. Like if you go to a South Asian wedding, I mean, the amount of ritual on those weddings that you know it's going to be emotional. If you go to a Jewish wedding, under the chuppah and the bedekin and all those different things where the bride is revealed to the family and the groom and things like that, they are steeped in tradition that have been developed over thousands of years. Shame on you if you do not know those traditions before you actually photograph them. So this is where we have to do our homework. If you photograph a wedding of a certain culture that you don't understand, you should research what that means. And if you don't know what that means, and if you haven't done the homework or don't have the time to do that homework, is find someone of the family that's dedicated to you to actually explain to you what's involved at this particular point in time. Here's the golden rule. If it moves, shoot it. If there's a different action, shoot it. Something happens, shoot it. Doesn't matter what it is. You may not understand it. You may think it's crazy, but it could be incredibly meaningful to the people that you're photographing. This next particular photograph was of a group prayer done for the bride. Now, I did not know this was happening. I was at the church. I was waiting for the bride to walk up the aisle. I actually traveled. I saw the bride, rock up to the actual church. She was there. I saw her. Half an hour goes by, nothing. The groom's looking at me and saying, "Where's the bride?" I'm like, "I don't know. We came together. She was in the car in front of me. We parked the car. I don't know what's going on." So I walked down into the crypt of the church, and there I saw the bride. All hands were on the actual bride, and they were praying for her. So I walked in and discovered something like this. So there are going to be moments like this that you don't pose at all, you find, but this pretty much encompasses everything that we're discussing. You see how all hands are touching in one way, bodies and everything like that. We're seeing this triangle of sort of faces with the hierarchy of the bride in the middle and the parents on this side. I love that you've got the wisdom on the left and you sort of got the youth on the right. I love that the fact that you've got the niece of the bride with her mother, and you can see there's so much intensity there as well. So you can't just do the obvious. Go out of your way to actually find moments. And like I said, if you go to everybody to find them, you become a magnet for them. It's funny because you often hear people say, "Oh, the universe is telling me something." The universe. And it's like, well, when the universe usually gives you what you want, it's because you've worked your ass off for it. It's no different than putting the energy out there of a certain thing that you want, but it's not so much, well, let me just pray for it and let me hope for it. And whether you believe in God, karma, or Buddha, whatever the hell it is that you believe in, all I'm saying is you've just got to work for it. You've got to the law of attraction and just sitting back and hoping for something to be miraculous in front of you. It's funny because when we hear these miraculous stories, it's from the people who had that miracle happen to them. Does that make sense? We don't hear from all the people that wish for something that didn't happen. So as a photographer, I say in my brain, if only the bride turned towards the light, the father turned this way, they put their foreheads touching, and then the brother and sister were giggling in the background. If only. When that happens in my brain, I just make it happen. Or I at least give history a chance and just put the elements in front of those situations and give them permission to feel a certain way. This next shot was the smallest wedding I've ever been to. This was the amount of guests at this wedding. So we've got the bride and the groom. We've got the daughter being held by the uncle. She was sleeping. We've got parents of the groom, parents of the bride. That was it. In fact, we were guests at the wedding. So those two chairs are for us. I'm like, I have a very incredible opportunity here to photograph a family at a wedding where this is the smallest number of guests ever and on one small table. Was this directed? Was it posed? Was it not? Who cares? I'll let you be the judge on whether I captured this or whether I created this or it was a combination of both. The point is that family photographs are not just about doing a cool effect and putting people together shoulder to shoulder or doing the foreground background thing or walking towards a camera. It is actually about creating something unique and dynamic for the family that truly represents them as individuals and as groups within the group. Here's a final photograph to really end our discussion on photographing and posing groups, families, guys, girls, bridal parties, in whatever context. And this sums it up. We want to toast and celebrate people. We want to celebrate people at their best. And in this case, you might think, well, how did you photograph this? Aren't you just lucky to have a very flamboyant family and the bride and groom happen to be standing underneath a chandelier and you happen to have a vignette of people all in the foreground framing the couple having a great time? Well, you can probably tell by my tone of voice that this was actually created by me. Now, how did I do this? I just thought, wouldn't it be cool for all those things to happen? I went up to the MC and I said, hey, would you mind if I direct a photograph publicly with a microphone? He goes, I'll do it for you. I said, great. Well, tell me at a convenient time at a dance bracket or at the start of a dance bracket or something where we can do this. Because what they had was they had a bit of a dance floor. They had ottomans everywhere. They had people flanking the people sitting on the chairs on either side. And then the best light was underneath the chandelier. I'm like, well, that's just begging for a photograph. So what do? Well, simply, I said to the MC, can you just get the bridal party and all the important family members underneath the chandelier? Everyone, do not look at me, face the bride and groom, toast them, celebrate them. And the MC was fantastic because he raised his voice, he got them in the mood, as a good MC does. And then we got this great photograph of this beautiful family. So guys, in summary, what am I trying to say here? Posing should be flattering, but also should be purposeful. It should be meaningful. When it comes to groups, when it comes to more than one person, because now, okay, we've talked about posing a girl, a bride, you know, an adult female here. We've talked about photographing a guy, an adult male over here. We've photographed a couple. Well, there's a certain dynamic when you're photographing a girl on her own, a guy on his own, and a couple. Right? There's a romantic relationship, let's say, if we're photographing specifically a wedding. When you're talking about a third person and beyond, a brother, a sister, a parent, a mum, dad, grandparent, we're talking about the idea of what does love look like between that many people? What do connections look like? What does unity look like? What does joy look like? What does strength look like? What does celebration look like? You have to know the mechanics as a foundation of understanding lighting and posing and how it affects big groups. But remember, beyond trying to make a perfectly posed group photograph of more than, say, 2 or 3 people, you should be asking yourself, how do I make this more meaningful? How do I make this more joyful? And how do I create a beautiful legacy for one's family? So the way you'll get better, quite simply, is repetition, experience, and practice. So don't forget that although in your mind, maybe before this watching this particular segment here, that in your mind, family photographs were quote unquote boring, I would challenge that you should go out of your way to look at everyone in that family through the eyes of the other, and you will start to see different things. So the thing is that you might have a bad relationship with your parents. Well, that should make you want to immortalize a good relationship for the parents. Does that make sense? If you have a good relationship with your parents, you are going to want that also for everybody else as well. So sometimes you have to do the thinking and the feeling for other people, because they're so in awe of the occasion, they're so in awe of the moment, that sometimes their true selves don't come out. And all you've got to do is what I call massaging the situation and being able to sort of shift the energy a certain way so people reveal themselves, and also understand a bit more about who you're photographing way before you even pick up the camera. Speaking to the parents individually, speaking to the best friends, speaking to even the bride and the groom without each other in each other's presence, and you start to understand all these dynamics. You make these notes, and you really have a bit of a game plan, and then based upon light, based upon location, based upon aesthetics, based upon the time that you have, you will make all these decisions. Get your safe shot. Get that one looking in the camera smiling, get them interacting, then break it up and take a bit of a risk. And trust me, you'll enjoy the process more, you'll never upset a client, and what you will do become more fruitful, and people will look at your photographs and not only see something pretty, but they will feel more. So remember, posing should be beautiful, but more importantly, purposeful.